Okay, welcome back. Let's see. It's Tuesday.
Walking down Las Vegas Boulevard for a little while today, and as you know, Jeff, and for listeners, the blocks in Las Vegas are the longest of any city in the world. I mean, they're just really long. And I walked all along in front of the Venetian Hotel Casino, and I think. And walking along on a normal day, you might pass 500 or 600 people, and I just completely packed it. Anytime, wintertime, summertime, doesn't matter. I think I passed about 15 people in this long block that's equivalent to 2.5 city blocks, very wide. It was just basically empty. And normally, another interesting thing that I've always believed in this, that one of the best harbingers of any city's finances or market, you can find out by the condition and the stories of taxi drivers, what's going on. They're a perfect microcosm, a complete microcosm of any market, and their pulse is right on it from hour to hour. They're far more accurate than any other forecaster. So one night I had to take second night in, we had a micro electrical problem. Our little car got corrected, and I took a cab for a couple of very short trips. And the cab driver told me the company he works for, it's Checker Yellow and another company. All cab drivers are employees in the city. There are no owners, no share owners. Everybody works for a piece of the meter. And he told me that this company, prior to the COVID-19, they had 2,250 cars working 12-hour shifts nonstop.
2,200 cars. All right.
Nonstop, continuously in operation, 12 hours on, 12 hours off. They now have slightly over 700 working 8-hour shifts. Which, my calculation, that's an 80% reduction in the amount of cab hours and earnings there. That's almost unprecedented. I mean, in fact, this gentleman had been driving for 15 years, and he was really intelligent. And he said, "Yeah, it's really catastrophic, and I'm just struggling to get by. I can get by, but I can't save anything. I can pay rent and buy some groceries, and that's all. There's nothing else left over, not so much as anything." And I noticed again it was busy only on Labor Day. A lot of people from LA came over, but mostly drove, pounded it for a day. I think they just needed some respite, just some kind of a vacation, if you will, a quick 5-hour trip over for a day or two and back home. And today the hotel we stayed in was essentially completely empty. Every time I've stayed in this place, it's off the strip a bit, even though nevertheless it's always very crowded. And check out in the mornings, there's hundreds of people checking out, hundreds of people coming in. It's just all the time. I was strolling around like I was on an empty, high school. Is all the kids have gone home and just a few janitors are working. It had that kind of feel to it. It was really quite surreal,
just
to be honest.
Empty. Surreal. Yeah. Well, the whole idea of humanity, like a hive of bees, buzzing and moving around, those are hotels. That's casinos. You take that, you've taken the life, it's gone. They're dead. It's got to be like walking through a morgue.
Yeah, the Nevada has the highest official unemployment rate in the United States. It's about 67% or something, and nobody's coming back, and very difficult condition to work. And interestingly, I got a chance to talk because I was around this hospital where my granddaughter got born. And I had a chance to talk to 2 or 3 medical people who were actually very, completely off the record, just asking what their opinion, have they seen very much of COVID-19. One nurse just looked at me and just looked her head up in the sky like, of course not, that kind of response. Several people I talked to in the medical profession said that there just has been no evidence of it. There's a few people who have got sick. Yeah, some old people in nursing homes have died or whatever. But they're just, everybody is going about their normal business here, like there's just absolutely no evidence of any kind of sickness or anything at all. And I know stories about it. I talked to some of the Hispanic nice young maids that work in our hotel and asked them questions about it. I always like to do my ethnography wherever I go to kind of get to the bottom of things.
Yeah.
Nobody I talked to whatsoever, the nice girl works in a coffee shop here, and everything. No, nobody's been sick. This hotel has many, many, many employees of all kinds of people, gardeners. Not one person they knew of. This one lady's worked in the coffee shop for the place for about 9 years. Really good barista. She said, as far as she knows, not a single person at the hotel staff has ever come down with this or had any symptoms of it. What does that tell you?
Not one.
So wow. What's this deal of massive distancing and masks and all these things? All the poker tables you have to play between plexiglass. Every seat has dual-side plexiglass, which they clean and disinfect every time a new player gets up or leaves. And it's just really bizarre. It's something. It's like being in a very strange science fiction movie. I don't know what to say.
Wow. Well. It's. Can you see honestly anything getting better for the city of Las Vegas?
Well,
how could it?
From the people I talked to said, yeah, things are up slightly off the real bad low. But another thing I noticed here, there are many of the small office strip malls, not retail space. A lot of retail spaces too, but the office strip malls that have, rent for offices for people. There were just rows after rows of streets, all for lease on those rent. So all people quickly, any offices just have regular offices. They're just giving them up immediately and working out of their homes. So that's. I mean, how are the landlords going to pay their mortgages on those? All those are financed. Anybody owns those free and clear. They all have commercial back lending on them. And who's the banks? What are the banks going to do? They're not collecting any mortgage payments. What's happening with that? There were a lot of them. I mean, a lot. And I drove around through various communities because I have a couple of friends here, and I went and visited them. And it was that way everywhere in town. A lot of shut down restaurants, that kind of idea. So, it was. I'm not saying the place was completely dead. There is business going on, but obviously, this whole business was founded on by the Cosa Nostra, this whole city, on a massive delusion of addiction to gambling. That's just the truth. And there's been a lot of other business around that. You take this away, and you cannot sustain. Yep. Yeah. You cannot sustain this city without massive tourism revenue. And I don't care how many businesses move over here from California. That's not going to be adequate. I mean, to save it. I don't think you can't create an alternate economy that is separate from gambling here without trillions being spent and new manufacturing and everything.
The only thing I can see that might even bring back 10 or 15%, 20%, is if they organize free airline round-trip flights from all the key hubs in America.
Yeah.
They just start bringing them in for free. Then give them the hotel room discounts. That's all they can do. I can't even imagine anything else. I used to work there.
I know. Yeah, so anyway, that's my update from Las Vegas, and I don't know what to say about it. One thing was refreshing here. There is no signs of civil disturbances here of any kind at all, because this is one town that will absolutely not cotton to that idea. I don't care how desperate the pleadings are of the upset citizens. They will not allow that. And I'm not an authoritarian guy by any stretch of the imagination, but there has to be some rule of law. At least that's being enforced here, and that's so different from the town where we once were running our business 6 months ago, until we were driven out to have to work out of our homes and things. It's been very unusual, and that part was rather refreshing. There's in other words, the place isn't insane, like Portland, Seattle and San Francisco become. It's very different, and that part is really refreshing. I don't like the weather; it's way too hot and all that. And I've never been a big fan of. I like traveling through the desert; it's pretty. I never like to live in it, and personally, no offense to people that do like it, that's great. But nevertheless, that part, there seems to be a level of level-headedness and reasonableness here that is profoundly missing in the major left coast cities in California, Oregon, and Washington. No question about it.
Okay. September, October, November, December. Evictions are put off until New Year's Day.
Yeah.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year.
I just don't see it. I can't see it.
We don't see it either. A couple things I'd like to go over just to be real fast, and I'm coming to break here, I know, in 5 or 6 minutes, but I'd like to go over that. A couple things I felt pretty good about. We were correct on. It's on several programs last month, and I can't remember which ones, but I generally forecast that gold and silver would stay in a trading range. They would not collapse. They would be in a consolidation phase, and this would continue probably through the end of September. And we also, and indeed, that's exactly what they have. Gold is trading in the 1900s and holding up well, and silver trading between about $26.50 and $28. That's up from $14 and $13 in February, which is more than a double up. So we feel our forecasts have proven true there. Another thing that I was mentioning, I think on one of your programs, at least I hoped I did, was we forecast that as the COVID assistance, like this major money to pay airlines to hire people who are not flying and working, is that ended at the end of September, and as the extra stimulus checks for extra unemployment ran out, as into August, that as we went into September after Labor Day, that these markets, stock markets, all the S&P, the NASDAQ, and the Dow would begin to sell off, and indeed they have. And it started on Thursday, and it has been quite precipitous. We have 3 days of losses, and a very significant one on Thursday and one again today. And we believe that this will continue there's a host of reasons for it. We'll get to that later in the program, but we feel that our forecast on that were exactly correct, and that's what's happening there. A couple of notes here. What happened today, which is amazing in the stock market, if we have a minute or two to get it in here, I'll just go over it really quickly. The Dow dropped 600 points today. The NASDAQ is down 10%.
But it's still up 20, what is it, 26? Where is it?
Yeah, it's, I have to look right at it here. I don't have it right in front of me, but it's still strong. The NASDAQ is down 10% in 3 days. There have been very, very, very significant. Tesla today plunged 21.1% in 1 day. And we were saying on the last show, this is the most inflated stock in the history of world human civilization. And it took a 21% crusher today. There is no earnings on it. In fact, what Tesla has done in the last couple of weeks is use their rising stock prices to sell another $5 billion worth of shares. Why would they be doing that if their stock's so high? Because they need to raise extra money to pay their employees and the expenses because they're not making any money. And
I can't even imagine how many Tesla automobiles are parked in massive storage locations.
Who knows? Hidden somewhere.
Yeah,
check the desert around here. I'm sure there's some out here somewhere. Elon Musk, this year alone, especially this summer, has generated for himself $9 billion in bonuses for getting his stocks up to this level. If you can imagine that, that is just absolutely astounding.
I don't think he really cares what happens to Tesla cars.
No, he doesn't.
Emotionally, but he doesn't financially care. He's got his money out. He's there. He's got his space things and his Neuralink things and all kinds of things.
Whatever.
There's another company cleverly named Nikola, as in Nikola Tesla.
Yes.
Now, Nikola, its shares went up 50%. After GM announced a big partnership, they bought in a $2 billion
buy-in into that. They bought a big chunk of them today. That is correct. Very good, Jeff. Yes, that is true. By the way, Nikola's cars aren't crashing. The latest one was a car that went crazy in China.
Yeah.
Ran down 3 people and killed them, injured 9 or 10 more, and wiped out about 9 or 10 vehicles and things. Just on its own, started accelerating massively, and the brakes wouldn't work. Yeah. I mean, these cars are a dangerous disaster, and the fact that they've never made any money, and for these stocks to be this high, that's just beyond crazy. Here's another thing fast on the horizon. Apple now has a valuation of $2 trillion, the highest of any company in the history of the world, way bigger than the GDP of a massive amount of nations, if you can imagine. And I mean, it's just ridiculous. They hardly pay any taxes, and they run it through offshoring of their profits to places like Ireland and other entities like that are set up, very, very, very creatively. Well, basically, Apple, all they do is make cell phones, and very expensive cell phones. Mm-hmm. Well, they've dropped here.
That's They're very expensive, and they also emit over double the legal limit of radiation into the heads, into the chest, into the bodies of those people who are carrying them on. And I have a new meter, and I had one, and I checked it out, and I wouldn't. No way. Dangerous stuff. They don't care. iPhone 11, more than 2 times the maximum allowed level of EMF and radiation.
Yeah, they do not care at all. They're made by slaves in China. Well, their stock dropped today 6.7%, and this sucker is down here. They're in the past recessions. They've been down also. We think that this might be. We believe that to buy puts against Apple, if you can afford it, big risk because it's so strong. But we think that what happens to Apple will determine what goes on entirely in the stock market. If people start really stepping in here and loading these shares, this could be the real, classic straw that broke the camel's back. I think Apple is probably the key to all these tech stocks and the whole stock market, actually. So you hear the music there, but that's a little summary on that.
Talking with Mike in Las Vegas. We'll come right back and continue our conversation in just a few minutes. Hang on. Trading inland and is moving across the entire country. Mike, are you there?
Sure, I'm here.
Good. I have got to reset my clock. The power went out here the other day, and I'm off about 30 seconds.
I had that happen to me, too. We live in a rural area. We've had that happen also, yes.
Yeah. Here's a little thing. We mentioned Tesla. Now, what's really interesting, and I would suspect that Nikola Tesla is chuckling somewhere. This other company called Nikola, and they're making electric cars, and some say they're going to be better than Tesla cars. I don't know anything about electric cars except I don't want anything to do with them. Maybe someday, but I just don't see it. Not now, not here. They can make a better internal combustion engine. There's nothing wrong with internal combustion engines. It's just that they've gotten away for so many decades with letting them run rampant in terms of emissions. No real. I know catalytic converters, I get that, but they can make better ones. All right, now, here's a little It's a minute long. It's a little piece on Tesla cars, all right? And take a listen.
Tesla is looking to cash in on its soaring popularity with investors. The electric car company unveiled plans Tuesday to raise $5 billion in its biggest new stock sale since it became a publicly traded company a decade ago. The sale will be spread out over an unspecified time according to a regulatory filing. Investors have a seemingly insatiable appetite for Tesla. The share price has surged nearly six-fold since the start of the year, and not even a 5-for-1 stock split has dented demand. Investors have pushed the value of Tesla shares so high that it not only became the world's most valuable car company in July.
Now get this. It's the world's most valuable car company on paper. That was in July.
But with an ever-increasing market value, now around $450 billion, it is worth more than 4 times as much on the stock market as General Motors, Ford, and Fiat Chrysler combined.
Do you believe what you're hearing? It's almost over here. That just blew me down.
Tesla said it will use the money from the capital raise to strengthen its balance sheet and for general corporate purposes. Shares of Tesla moved slightly lower Tuesday after hitting an all-time high.
All right. Well, Ford, GM, and Fiat Chrysler combined, Tesla is worth more on paper?
And they've never, ever had a profitable quarter. They make something like...
This is science fiction.
Yeah, they make something like 0.3% of the cars sold in the world each year. I mean, this is like something that's so crazy. We are living in bizarro times here where there's been a complete financialization of reality. There is no true work ethic, and the main thing there isn't existing. And I like the guy that I follow a lot called Stuart Thompson. He's an analyst. I think he's fantastic. He says, here is what has been lacking for a real long time in this society, in this world. And he asked this question, actually in an article today, so I was going to cover it. It fits in here perfectly. He said, what do governments, central banks, or health organizations all have in common? And the answer is, he says, is a refusal to make saving money a cornerstone of crisis preparation. Ever. In other words, governments and central banks and these massive organizations, they don't save money. And neither do the citizens of the country save money. I read today that 59% of all American families have zero savings as much as $1 for anything of their children's future. College education, even a nice high school graduation trip to Cabo, anything. So almost 60% of all families in the United States are so poor that they've not set aside so much as $1 for all the future children's post-high school education or apprenticeship training in a business or a help with a startup of a company or anything. Because savings is out now. When the value of a currency continues to depreciate relentlessly, people intuitively, almost accidentally, stop saving. They start spending to take value of the immediate purchasing power of that money. And they also, they can get no interest rate, at zero interest rates, they start speculating with their money to make up the difference. And this in other words, zero interest rates, where you can't say, never make it, has killed pensioners and retirees. So they too, likewise, have to gamble up so they can, and as their value of their money also decreases, the only alternative, and this is true for large corporations as well, all pension plans, all pension funds, all insurance companies, all have to gamble in these markets. They have to participate in the financialization casino. Actual productivity and earned wealth is a thing of the past in this. And it's just, I mean, it's right up there at the collapse of the Roman Empire in insanity. Right before the Visigoths came down, the common people were hoping for a great re-glorification of the nation, much like Make America Great Again, that kind of theme. And it didn't happen. They died. That kind of idea. And I think the United States is right at the crossroads of that. That's how I look at it.
I think you're right. I think that's fair. Crossroads, yeah. We're at a number of crossroads.
A bunch of them, yeah. You're right.
Here's another one. Now, this, just for fun, not equal time, but this is a little video about GM and Nikola, the other company.
Motors is acquiring an 11% stake in electric truck maker Nikola in a deal worth about $2 billion. The companies will join forces to build an electric pickup truck. Shares of Nikola soared on the news. Together, they plan to launch production of the Nikola Badger pickup truck by the end of 2022. GM will make the electric battery and fuel cells for that truck. Nikola will give GM $2 billion in stock and the right to name one director to its board. The truck will compete with Tesla's Cybertruck, as well as electric pickups planned by startup Rivian, Ford Motor, and GM itself. Nikola claims the Badger will have a range of 600 miles, compared with Cybertruck's claimed range of more than 500 miles. The Cybertruck and other electric pickups have not launched yet. GM has been busy doing deals to slash expenses and develop cleaner vehicles. Just last week, it announced it's partnering with Japan's Honda Motor to develop new internal combustion models.
See what I said? Oh, this is interesting. New internal combustion engine models. All right, here's back to GM here.
Mary Barra is rushing to convince Wall Street that GM can cut costs in its traditional internal combustion business while developing a viable electric vehicle business to compete with Tesla. Investors liked what they heard, driving GM shares up 8% and Nikola's up 40%.
Well, okay, so you got both sides. You got both sides of the electric car coin there, Nikola. The Chevy bow tie emblem, I think honestly, it's nice, it's attractive. I think it's too big. Now this is nitpicky stuff. I think if they reduce the size of that bow tie emblem by half, it would understate things and be more elegant. I just don't. It's a little too garish. And I like marketing. I like the psychology of marketing. You see that bow tie. It's too much in your face. Cut it down by 50%. It would have more punch. People would look a little closer to see it.
Yeah, I always felt, especially it was okay for the 50s. I think now it looks a little cheesy. I always felt that way myself, actually.
It's got to be made much smaller, and more elegant, maybe thinner. It's a little too fat and pudgy. Yeah. Just a thought.
A little too blocky there. they need to hire us, Jeff. We'll straighten this thing out right away.
We'll
push up their sales here. Quick. You bet. Let's see what else is going on here.
I want to say one thing about the Tesla pickup truck, that weird-looking thing from a movie.
Oh yeah, it looks like the one of the Avanti. What was
the Studebaker Avanti?
It looks like a Studebaker Avanti kind of makeover, or something like a science fiction sort of.
Interesting. It is sci-fi. My personal feeling is it'll do okay. I don't think people are ready to give up their brawn and muscle pickups at all. No, I don't see it. And then the Nikola truck is similar. It's called a Badger. Similar in design. It's very sleek. It looks, sci-fi, and I don't care for it much.
You know what? I think most people that drive pickup trucks, and we do, and if you live in a rural community like you and I both do, everybody has trucks because they need them. They serve a
$70,000 four-wheel drive truck to drive back and forth to Walmart. That's what most people
back and forth to Walmart. I read somewhere though that 95% or something of all four-wheel drive vehicles of any kind never leave pavement.
Never.
Ever. Never. And most of them are driven in warm weather where you don't need four-wheel drive traction, actually. So what exactly is the point of all that? I agree.
People are driving their ego. They're driving what they want people to think they are. Macho, right? Independent, strong.
Yeah. Look at my vehicle. This proves how manly I am. Yeah, I know. That's happening there. Getting on to a little bit of news here. Just a few things that are very interesting. There was a couple of very interesting things happening here. People should please pay attention to this. This was from last week off Zero Hedge. There are warning flashes as corporate execs dumped the most stock since 2015, and this is the biggest stock dump by executive officers of American corporations, the second largest since they've been keeping track of this in the history of the United States. The S&P 500 called Capery, that's an average forward post earnings actually on the S&P 500. It hit 29 to 1, which is the all-time high of the S&P 500 price to earnings ratio in the history. It's been around for over 100 years. And along with that, it said here that in this year, there have been 1,042 chief executives, chief financial officers, and company directors that have dumped stock. In August was the second largest month in the history of record keeping of all the exchanges. So the insiders know that these prices of these stocks are profoundly, parabolically overbid, profoundly overpriced, profoundly, massively top-heavy, with absolutely no earnings to substantiate these incredible evaluations. And so they are selling into this rally massively, and that is starting to reflect here in the last 3 days. This thing is getting ready to collapse, and these guys have good matrix. They know what's going on. They're going to take the money. A couple of people here. Here's an example of what you make when you have these positions. Chief executives have been reading an article, have been much more downbeat in their outlook than investors at Mac Gorkin. A couple of people here, a couple of guys that own a company together, a tech company. Steve Rates and his brother Michael, founder of U.S. industrial conglomerate Danaher, were the biggest sellers in August, offloading nearly $1 billion worth of stock in technology specialist Fortive Group, which was spun out of Danaher in 2016. There was more financialization. Steve, one brother, pocketed $606 million. The other took home $363 million. Nice little payday there. They're fat. Meanwhile, these companies continue to lay off any unnecessary employees. Leslie Wexner, who founded Victoria's Secrets, and he was a cohort and probably the actual Zionist sponsor of Jeffrey Epstein. Yeah, he sold a lot. He sold this month. He sold $89 million worth of his company stock.
Okay. He is one. There's much more to that guy. He is. He's bad. This guy is evil stuff.
He is real. He's real bad news.
Did you see that video of one of the sex slaves? I think I might have sent it to you. I certainly posted it. Yeah, that tells the whole story. Unbelievable evil on this planet.
Yeah, no question about it. So the insiders are selling out the NASDAQ 100 like crazy. This tech bubble, we believe, is getting ready to blow up here, maybe famously. I mean, we're on the verge of a collapse like the dot-com. And by the way, the charts of the NASDAQ 100 and the charts of the tech stocks, and if you say individual ones or group like the FANG stocks, Facebook, Apple, Amazon, and you compare them to the charts of the dot-com run-up the last year, 99 where the NASDAQ, after it collapsed in 2000, lost 80% of its value within about 16 months. The charts look almost exactly, step-by-step, identical. Now, that past results aren't necessarily future predictive, but they sure give you a pretty decent idea. And as Damon Runyon said, the battle isn't always to the swift. To to the fierce or the race to the swiftest, but that's certainly the way to bet. One of my favorite lines. And we were going to start betting here again, taking out some positions against some of these overpriced companies. We're going to spend a little bit of extra money, and we're going to bet against them because we think this is just ridiculous. And it's money we can afford to lose. We're going to take a little seed money and throw at it. We think our last results we did on the buying up gold when it dropped $200 in March, and also selling off. We took our first options before the collapse of the stock market in March. Did really well for us. And we're going to try to do it again about right now. So we just think this can't continue, and it's just insane. I mean, it's just these prices are, and this whole planet is insane, for that matter. And a couple of other things I'd like to briefly talk about for your program. A couple other things just happened. The United States trade balance for the month of July just got reported here at the beginning of September. This reported actually on the 3rd of September. Hit, I believe it's the second worst month in its history, $63.6 billion trade deficit, up from a revised $53.5 billion. So we're talking, 1/6 to 17% increase in trade deficit basically in 1 month from July. And that's the widest trade deficit since 2008, and the second largest monthly trade deficit, increase in the history of our trade imbalances going back to when we started having them in the 1960s. Nothing has been fixed here. The hemorrhaging of money and losses continues unabated. Our economy, our manufacturing, none of that is now much worse than it was before. So that's not going away. Here's some other news that's being announced today. Or actually, it was not today. I'm sorry. It was last week as well. I wasn't on the program. Last week, United Airlines announced plans to lay off 16,000 jobs at the beginning of October 1st. That is in addition to American Airlines.
I think it was was that? Oh, American was 19. United
19,
was 16.
And now United is now they're going to do 16,000.
35 million.
35,000, and those are high-paying jobs, ladies and gentlemen. Those are pilots. Reciprocating jet, aviation jet mechanics makes like $75 an hour, and they can earn that easily.
35,000 more, and we got to think always. Never just think those are individuals. Families.
No, those are families. Those are families.
Yes. Yeah.
And all the money those people spend on that won't the multiplier effect. Money gets turned over 8 or 10 times. Well, that's ending. That ends the supply chain of future spending. They don't eat out at restaurants. The restaurants go broke. They decide to let go of the gardeners, start cutting their own grass, if you know what I mean. That kind of idea. That's going to continue. Also, reporting here last week as well. Last week, 881,000 Americans filed for first-time unemployment benefits. So supposedly things are getting fixed here, but these people are brand new people. Almost 1 million people in 1 week that haven't had to file yet. Well, why do they haven't had to file? Because they had a job. They've been laid off at the end of August. So 881,000 Americans filed in 1 week for first-time unemployment benefits. That is really, a bad statistic. It's just no question about it. It really is. Juxtaposed to that, these pension funds are completely dying. They don't know what to do. They are in such bad shape. Illinois is underfunded. There's no way out. There's no way out. None of the pensioners today are going to receive their money, or if they do, they'll receive it, but milk will be $45. Milk will be $45 a gallon. You'll get it, but it doesn't buy anything. So, I mean, in other words, getting back to this article I was talking about, Thompson talking about how these, they're going to let the central banks and the big entities and the politicians, they're going to let the uber wealthy make it. Everybody else, they don't care until the point it gets so vile they have to start funneling massive money, like through direct payments to families, whether you're working or not. They'll only do it not because they care about the people, the citizens. They'll do it because they know their heads are going to be put on a stake in front of the White House, in front of Congress if they don't. That's the next step. And of course, if that happens, then you have base inflation, as that money just pours directly into the spending sector of daily habits. That will boost gold and silver like it has in Venezuela, where an ounce of gold back in Venezuela, in their currency, the bolivar 20 years ago cost 6,000 bolivars per an ounce. Now it's nearly 500 million, nearly a half a billion bolivars to buy a Krugerrand, a 1 ounce gold South African coin you could have bought for 6,000 bolivars back 19, 20 years ago. And as this money when they start pouring it directly to try to stave off massive riotings and things, which is obviously people are getting pretty used to it now. At least these riots might have a semblance of reality behind them, as some actual true how can I say it complaint. Then we're going to have massive price inflation. Either way, it's going to be a horrible outcome. You cannot borrow your way to prosperity, as we said many times in this program, and the borrowing hereby is finished. It will be continued at great suffering. No matter how they do it. They're going to either give it only to the wealthy, or then they're going to start doing that and then dump it off to all the unwashed, all the underclass. Give it to us, the common people, to the plebes, if you will. Give it to them, and in which case we'll just cause massive inflation. We'll make things even worse. There is no way out of this, we say, period, unless there's a complete, just who knows, what is going to take to change it. Nobody has an idea. But I think it will not be polite at all, as you've mentioned. I think it's going to be a very tough time, very tough, and that's our assessment of that.
Wow. I wish I had a little good news to pour in here.
We do too.
I feel like I'm failing somehow and not bringing something good forward, but there's just nothing there. All the indicators are by plan. They've thought of everything. They've gamed this countless times over the years, maybe the decades. They know precisely what to expect with every move they make, within plus or minus 1 or 2%. They're going to get it. This is a rehash of 1917, but with advanced technology. The disgusting overthrow of Russia by the Bolshevik Zionists.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of Russia, right now they're pressing their buttons really strong. They're sending nuclear bombers that have been driven off by fighter jets over the Black Sea. They're now NATO's in our army has now moved tanks out of Poland through Lithuania to the right on the western border of Belarus, which they're trying to have a color revolution there because they want to upset that because it's right next door to Russia, and that's going on as we speak. And again, tonight, breaking news: there have been armed conflict shooting with rockets in the Himalayas between China and India. So their forces are working full tilt here to try to get something started. We better pray they don't, because I don't think Russia and China are going to respond politely to this at all. They're not going to take it. They're not going to. And we have to be the hubris of the Western allies have to be really, really stupid right now. It's on complete ego or something to think they can just badger these people and they'll take it endlessly without doing something that's going to be truly earth-shattering, and it can only be bad. But everybody should put out a strong, positive thought prayer that doesn't go that way, because our problems will be a lot bigger than just a coronavirus of economic collapse if that happens.
Amen. A thought prayer. That's a good term. I'll remember that.